Hey everyone, it's Rob Ryder on Sunday, January 10th, 2021. 10 days until D-Day. Should be an interesting time. And, the deep state isn't just in Washington, D.C., it's all over the place. If you want to defund the deep state, well, then pay your taxes, but don't pay somebody else's. That's what this video is about. They have us paying real property tax that you really don't own, right? If you look closely at the paperwork, the property that you bought, as evidenced by your warranty deed, that's not the same description that there's taxing you on. And there's a number of errors. I mean, the paperwork is full of errors and omissions, right? And so if we were to take some time to make the local taxing authority, which in Michigan is a city or a township assessor, right, to correct the records, well, then I believe your property would be actually residential personal property instead of residential real property. So we'll look at that here more in a minute. And because of what I'm looking at is really based on Michigan, if you're not from Michigan, you should watch the video anyways. It will enlighten you, I'm sure. But if you know somebody in Michigan, then please send it to them because this is everybody in Michigan is paying these taxes that don't need to be paid. It's not that you can't pay your taxes, it's that the tax that you're paying isn't a tax you should pay, right? And it's going to the deep state. So you want to put an end to it, then do something. So, basically when I say it's going to the deep state, what they're doing then is they take the money you give them for taxes and they go put it in some kind of fund and it's sitting there. It's probably can be all traced through their comprehensive annual financial report, which has all these different funds that they run, right? And somebody gets paid big money to do all the, transferring of the money and making the investments and so forth. And so they're taking your money to make a fund, and then that fund is used to invest back and forth, and they get paid the fees for doing the fund management. It's a great deal for them. Why would they complain? So they're not going to come tell you that there's errors in your records and you're really paying taxes you don't need to pay. But that doesn't mean that you can't go down there and change their mind and get them to change the documents. And my thought is because, most of this is done at the local level, well, then church groups should be doing this, right? So we need to get some people with some good church connections to at least get one church to get going and get all their parishioners doing the same thing. As far as that goes, call in the local tax man and have a talking, at the parish council instead of at the township board, and just ask them to come in and say, look, this and this and this is wrong. We got to fix this stuff. This is how the deep state gets funded. I know you don't want that to happen, and I don't want it to happen, so we need to change this. The old system is coming down, and what it's replaced with depends on us. Right? So because of this, there's errors in these records, and so your name really isn't on the local record as being the owner of the property. You're like homeless. You're paying all the taxes, all the bills of the state, but you're considered homeless and you don't have any authority. Or you don't have a vote. You don't count. It's all just a mirage of a system run by attorneys, by esquires, that, through color of law process, have us living in a parallel universe, jurisdiction, outside of the Constitution. But if you got your name on the proper records and the proper jurisdiction, well, you would show back up in the United States and you would be protected by the Constitution and the United States military. Because they will defend the United States, but we're not in it. Right? They got us to agree to live in a parallel jurisdiction that may share the same territory, but it's not the same jurisdiction. And it's a jurisdiction that's not under the Constitution. They just pretend that it is. Right? It may be under the Confederate Constitution, but it's not under the Constitution of the United States. Because none of these people involved in the system have taken the oath to satisfy the 6th article of the Constitution of the United States. Right? From the president on down to the dog catcher, not one person has taken the oath that satisfies 6th article of the Constitution. Well, I can't say not anyone. But the ones that you would believe like everybody should. Nobody has. And I've done, videos in the past. I can't spend any time on that, but I want to keep this kind of short because Dana, the guy whose paperwork I'm going to be showing, he has a show cause hearing coming up on the 20th. And, this all has to do with that. And so instead of me just doing a video and sending it to him or trying to explain it on the phone, I said, well, I'll use it as an example to do a video and share it with as many people as I can. There you are. So you are paying real property tax on erroneously assessed personal property. And so I believe the easiest way to explain this is that Roosevelt took back all the deeds to the property, right, and gave us certificates of title. But they kept the title, right? So the state has the title, but you have the rights and the interest. Rights, titles, and interest. They're holding title, you got rights and interest. Okay, because if you were to abandon the property for some reason, in 6 months the state can take it back. Well, then they must be holding the title, right? Because it would revert back to whoever has the title. And that's really no different than it was in England when they did, the king would give property to knights and so forth. If the knight died, then the king could give the property to somebody else. Or if the knight did something wrong, well, the king could give the property to somebody else. But otherwise, the knight had the rights and interest in the property, but the king kept the title. So the sovereign, the state, has kept the title, and you're supposed to have rights and interest, but the state has the title. So this is personal property to you because you don't have the title to the land, to the real property. I'll show you that in a minute. So here we go. I am Staff Sergeant Robert Allen Rutluski, United States Army veteran, and I am a renter, right? I don't own, so I can't do this stuff myself. And so, at some point, it's you that needs to get up and go talk to these people to make it happen. If you're the owner of the property, right? I'm just trying to show you the avenue. And if you're from Michigan, let's go get it done. And once we crack the nut, well, then it'll be much easier for everybody else. But it's got to be done once, somewhere. So let it be here. Okay, so AKA, that'd be me, Rob Ryder. Email address is quarterrecord@aol.com. Phone number 616-712-6179. And your donations keep the lights on. Thank you very much. They're still on today. Praise Jesus. It's because people have donated, and I'm eternally grateful. Thank you very much. PayPal account would be robryder@aol.com. Now, if you don't have a PayPal account, but you have a credit card, you could send me an email saying, hey, Rob, why don't you send me an invoice from PayPal for X number of dollars, whatever you'd like to donate, and then you can pay it on a credit card. Isn't that handy? Or you can put it in the mail to Robert Allen Rutluski, 10955 14 Mile Road Northeast, Rockford, Michigan, 49341. So anyways, let's clip through some things of why I say what I say, and then go look at some law to say, well, what does the law say about what he says? And between the two, see if we can get enough information together that, a band of brothers can go down and have a talk, civil talk with the people at the township and say the records are wrong, you have to fix them. Right? It's because these records are wrong that the deep state is being funded, and you need to stop it. You don't want them to, are you a deep stater? Because most of the townships in Michigan, they were all voting for Trump. So, by and large, the people in the townships wanted Trump to be the president, and it didn't happen, so we'll then take the deep state's money. Now, this has been going on for a long time. This didn't just start happening, right? This is the system that we live in that's been created by these frickin' bar card attorneys, esquires, who created this whole parallel system that we seem to be living in. I don't know if they're smart enough to do it. I think they got help from the aliens, or at least from demons. Well, probably more likely from demons. So aliens, I think, would be more godly. So, okay, let me continue on. Hang on here. Okay, so, hey, if you're one of those people that were told you need to watch this video and had not seen any of my videos before, right? This is my site, Rob Ryder, and there's many videos, but the most recent was this classification assessment tax used as deep state tools of the trade, tricks of the trade. So that has a lot more information I'm not going to go over again, but you should watch that along with this video here. And if you want to know why I say Esquires are evil, there it is, Esquires evil exposed. There's any number of reasons you could say that. If you want to know why the Supreme Court denied the case by state of Texas, well, then watch this video because you'll find out state of Texas is the name of Texas when Texas was in the Confederacy. But now it's known as just Texas. And yet when they tried to open up a court case, they said they were state of Texas. Well, state of Texas is under the Confederacy from the Civil War. Right? So they don't have any standing in the United States or the Supreme Court of the United States. You know, that would be correct. Okay, so hang on here. Where do I want to go next? Right here. So this is what we're looking at. Dana Reed Smith got a tax bill some time ago from Blue Lake Township, right? This tax is due 2018. So Blue Lake Township is, they're not the tax collector, but they're the ones wanting the tax, right? They're the tax consumer. But they have Smith Dana R. is, you know, the person that's been taxed. And they got this number here, right, which they say is a property number. And then they got a property information with Smith Dana R. again. And then they got this legal description. And, you know, I'm sure if you've gotten a tax bill from the township in Michigan, it's looked something like this. Well, you know, as I said, that, you know, it doesn't have your name on it. You know, there's no comma between Smith and Dana to signify that it's last name first, right? So this is just letters on a piece of paper. That isn't anybody's name. Dana Reed Smith is Dana Reed Smith's legal name, and if you want to charge Dana Reed Smith, then you need to put Dana Reed Smith on the paper. Otherwise, you're not talking to Dana Reed Smith. Well, they didn't plan on talking to Dana Reed Smith. They want you to, you know, consent to be Smith Dana R. and pay this damn bill. Right? Because, you know, the attorneys have convinced the people at the township that it's okay and they'll come take your freaking property from you. They've laid grievous burdens on people. They won't do anything to help to relieve it. Right? So now this is the deed for that piece of property. And first of all, I want you to notice it has this real estate transfer tax stamp on it. So anybody's deed in Michigan was going to have the stamp on there. And this thing is supposed to be canceled just like a postage stamp. Right? This is the stamp tax, right? Based on the value of the property. And this is the ad valorem tax that you're supposed to pay for the transfer of property. But that's the only tax you're supposed to pay. That tax right there. You know, depending on if your property is personal property or real property. We'll get into that in a minute. And they want you to believe that this little scribble here is supposed to be canceling this stamp. But if you go read the law, they're supposed to put the date on and some other things, and this isn't canceling. They're supposed to prove holes in it, right? But that's what the county will tell you. Now, here's the same number that we saw in this other one, right? That number is the same number as this number. But it's not in his deed, right? Somebody freaking wrote that on afterwards. Right? That isn't what Dana bought. Here's quick claim to Dana R. Smith, which is incorrect. I mean, it should be Dana Reed Smith. So I'm not sure who wrote this for them or who decided to put what information in, but right? But here's the legal description that Dana said that he bought. Well, that's not what's being taxed. Right? They've added on to that. Right? So it's like, well, we're just going to add something on and say, well, no, you owe this tax instead. But that isn't the legal description of what Dana bought. So why would he pay the tax on something that he didn't buy? You get my, you know, starting to catch on, right? This is what happens. Well, you don't pay those taxes, eventually they're going to send you a tax notice. And now it's coming from Kalkaska County Treasurer, where the bill, right, came from Blue Lake Township. The collector is Kalkaska County Treasurer for the same thing, this fictitious number with this fictitious name, right? Saying that he owes this for real property tax. Well, the state in Michigan has all these different codes, state tax commission recommended classification codes. And they have this one down here for residential 451, right, which is residential personal, which is personal property. And you wouldn't pay tax on personal property. So that's what it should be, right? Most, if you were to find the record, I think most are going to have like residential 401 on, which is improved, right? But all that takes to be, instead of vacant, to be improved is to have like the power pole come on, right? And have a just power run to the property, and now it's improved. Well, long after that, when the house is built, and the barn's built, and all the stuff is, it's still 401. Well, it doesn't have to be. I think it can be this residential personal. That's the idea. We want them to change the classification to personal, and you wouldn't have to pay property tax. But until then, right, they're claiming, right, this is a real property tax foreclosure. So the way to get rid of that is to make it so it's not real property. And so this is where we are now, right? So all those things that led to this. We're on January 20th, same day Trump needs to leave office. It could be a real interesting day in the world's events, both locally and nationally, right? At 10 o'clock, Dana's supposed to go in and show cause why. The purpose of this hearing is to allow persons with a property interest to show cause why absolute title to the property forfeited by the county, right? This is property forfeited by the county, not to the county, by the county treasurer under 21178 should not vest in the foreclosing government unit. So I'm not really sure. You would say, the county treasurer is, the person up here, the Kalkaska County treasurer. Right, where did we see that at? Right, this person. But I don't know that for sure because, this is in all caps. That's just the title of something. That doesn't mean that's this thing's duty is to be the county treasurer. It's just something called County Kalkaska Treasurer. It's the name of a business where the, county treasurer is a person. So whoever that is supposed to, if you have interest, you need to go tell them. Well, we're assuming that's what this is all about here. A show cause here would be held on this date at this time, but it doesn't say where. It says with the county treasurer, but where? Where do we meet? Right? So you go see the person that says Kalkaska County treasurer, and they're not the county treasurer, then you went to the wrong office and you missed your hearing. So we really need to know, Dana, who's this county treasurer? Who are they talking about? Right, but then it gives you these reasons here that you could say, well, why you're not paying the tax? Or why, no law authorized the tax. Well, that would be a reason. The person appointed to decide whether a tax shall be levied under a law of this state acted without jurisdiction or did not impose the tax in question. Well, for them to have jurisdiction, they needed to take the oath of office that satisfies the 6th article of the Constitution of the United States, which is now in the United States Code under Section or Title 4, United States Code, Section 101. I, Robert Allen Bratluski, do solemnly swear to support the Constitution of the United States. That's the only oath that satisfies the 6th article of the Constitution, and that's the only oath that allows you to have any authority in the state, because 4 U.S.C. 101 says all state officers need to take that oath before they have any authority. So if they can't show you 4 U.S.C. 101, standalone oath, then they didn't do it. Right? Not some other oath, not something with some other words. No, 4 U.S.C. 101. That's the only one that matters. I'll probably show that in a second, but let's continue on. The property was exempt from the tax in question. Well, yeah, if it's personal property, then it's exempt from real property tax. Or was not legally assessed. And this is what we'll be looking at. They have to make up this thing called an assessment roll, which isn't the tax roll, but it's the thing that the tax roll is derived from. right? And it's on this assessment roll that they would put this residential 451 or 401 or whatever it is, right? And that would determine what the property is. The tax has already been paid. The tax has been assessed fraudulently. Well, that could be, if they're not doing it right, it would be fraudulent. The assessor has to be certified by the state, right? So, there's things to look at to prove that they have the authority to do what they're doing. The description of the property used is indefinite and erroneous. And so right off the bat, I'm saying, well, that's the one that you can use immediately, because this legal description that they're foreclosing on or want to foreclose on isn't the legal description that Dana owns. Right? They don't have that part on the end with these other little blah, blah. Whatever this is, 002. Now, this number, this property ID number, right, isn't something that they can use for assessment of taxes. The proper thing to use is called a parcel identification number, but it starts with the county. It's got the 2 digits of the county, which in this case would be 40 for Kalkaska County. And then the 002, that's for townships, and then 034 is the section, and, well, the rest of it is whatever it is. I don't remember how it all works out, but you get the idea. So, you don't have to have all of these. Right? Well, that's the wrong description. That's why. You're trying to take my property saying it's this property, but it isn't this property. It's this property. Right? So I don't owe these taxes. Well, that's the show cause hearing. And by the way, you didn't take the proper oath of office. And let me go get that right now so I can say that I showed it. Hang on a second. Yeah, I got to show this every time because if you've never seen this before, you need to know it, right? So if you go Google 4 USC 101, find this govinfo.gov, click on it, right? Go to PDF. It'll give you this nice one-page document here. Eventually. There we go. And here's the oath, right? So it's got these other sections on also, but this is out of Title 4, United States Code. And it's got this little eagle up here, which means it's authenticated, right? So this is the law as it is written today in the United States Code. Now, when you print this out, then it becomes hearsay evidence instead of being authenticated. So we'll talk about that in a second. But what it says is, right, oath of members of legislatures and officers. Every member of a state legislature and every executive or judicial officer of a state shall, before he proceeds to execute the duties of his office, take an oath in the following form, to wit, I state your name, I swear I will support the Constitution of the United States. That's the same oath that came out of one statutes at large, page 23. Very first law passed by the very first Congress after the ratification of the Constitution. And it said, this is the oath. It says this in the act, right? That this is the oath right here that satisfies the 6th article of the Constitution. Now, that's the first law ever passed from the time of the ratification of the Constitution. Right? So if we're not going to enforce the first law ever passed, why would we expect anybody to follow the second law or any law after that? And that's what they did. They set a precedence by not following this law. Now, everybody who's listed in Article 6 of the Constitution is supposed to have taken this. That's senators, representatives, state legislatures, officers, executive and judicial, all executive and judicial officers of the United States and the several states all had to take this oath, regardless if they have to take another oath. They have to take this oath. This is a federal law that says every state officer needs to take this. And I've shown numerous times that, Whitmer's not taking it, or anybody else that has ever sent me an oath has never sent me this oath, so they haven't taken it. Right? Whatever they needed to do, I haven't got it yet. So, and then the oath that they do send me is a counterfeit of what should have been submitted according to the state constitution. They changed the grammar on it. The person's not using their full legal name. And in the governor's case, a governor cannot have the oath administered by a notary public. And sure enough, on Whitmer's oath, there it is, notary public. is the one that supposedly administered her an oath. So, this the there's we don't have to put up with this. If we put up with it, it's our own fault. Now, we can harp at Nancy Pelosi and group all we want, or we could start at the local township instead because they're a lot closer and say, well, let's just take their money away from them. And this isn't right now. I'm just showing property tax. I showed in my previous video. This is really the same in income tax because the forms that they send you for taxes, like a 1099 or a W-2 or so forth, they're called Class 5 forms. But it's Class 2 that's income tax. So why are you putting Class 5 information on a Class 2 return? Right? It doesn't make any sense. The forms that you got sent for a 1099 or a W-2, they're not on a form that's for income tax. And so that'll be another video. Obviously, can't do it in this one, but I'm just showing you this is how you bleed them dry, right? Is we're paying a lot of taxes that we don't owe. And not only that, because of the way it's being done, because we're not fixing these records, right? You're not in the United States. You're in the United States of America, which is King George III's jurisdiction. Treaty of Peace, 1783. Said in the first chapter, right? That the king speaking, that he's claiming these different things, and one of them he claims is the United States of America. It's never been disputed. Okay, so those are those things. So now what do we do? So Dana has to have this hearing. So what Dana needs to do first, that's my opinion, right? You think about it. Michigan Compiled Law 48.101. Right? If you were to Google this, MCL 48101, you can find this document. And it's transcripts and abstract of paper or record. Okay, and it has to do with, except if it's provided in 6, county treasurer shall, so again, who's the county treasurer, shall upon request of a transcript or any paper record file, treasurer's office, filing fees. Well, okay, but what does it say in 6? The maximum charge shall be 25 cents per parcel record, not to exceed $1,500 for each record under this section, if the request is for an electronic copy of records in a qualified data file that is maintained with the county treasurer. A response to a request for an electronic copy of records in the qualified data file shall be transmitted electronically using a format that is documented by an open standards organization that has defined delimited fields. What the hell does that mean? A request? That's a response to a request. Okay, there you go. They need to answer in this open standards organization defined delimited fields. Well, what does that mean? Copies of records obtained under 6 may not be resold. Okay. As used in this act, qualified data file means an electronic data file that includes at least the following information in the record for each parcel of real property in the county for the current tax year. And it has to have all these different things on there, such as property classification. Well, that'll tell you if you're residential 401, 402, 451, or whatever. It'll give you the property address. It'll give you the parcel identification number, which has the county number to start with, who the owner is, who the taxpayer is, principal resident status. A lot of things that we need to know. Right? And so I've never seen one, so I really need somebody who owns their property to go get one. And according to this, you can get it from the county treasurer. You don't have to have a reason. Just tell them you want one. So let's go back here now. Where were we now? Okay, and page 34. So just a few things then real quick on. This is chapter 211 of the Michigan Compiled Laws. It has to do with assessments, right? Because we're talking about an assessment roll. So a supervisor or other assessing officer, as soon as possible, after entering upon the duties of his office, or as required under the provisions of any chapter that makes special provisions for the assessment of property, shall ascertain the taxable property in his or her assessing district, the persons to whom it should be assessed, and that person's residence. Well, this is the thing we don't have. We don't have no residence address, right? They're not doing this stuff. Except as provided in some sections, the supervisor or other assessing officer shall require any person whom he or she believes has personal property in their possession to make a statement of all personal property of that person, whether owned or by that person or held for use of another, to be completed and delivered to the supervisor or assessor on February 20th of each year. Right? That's what he's supposed to do. Has anybody ever come and asked you about personal property? Do you have a boat sitting on your property? As the supervisor asked you to, who believes he has personal property in their possession? Right? I mean, everything, tangible personal property is just about everything. But they're not asking you about it. So what's that about? I thought they were supposed to keep this record. Willful neglect or refusal to make a statement. Penalty report, fraudulent claim for personal property exemption. If a person or member of firm, I don't know if I want to read all these. I just want to find the one I wanted to find, because here we go. This is what we're looking for. At the end of the day, when all the rest of the smoke is cleared and all the rest of the law has been talked about, and the township attorney's been standing there telling you why, blah, 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 and they're giving you all sorts of why they can't do something. You just have to tell them. But the law says in Section 24, on or before the first Monday in March in each year, the assessor shall make and complete an assessment roll upon which he or she shall set down all the following. Now, this said before the first Monday of March in each year. So they have to do this before March 1st. It's not like shall means we can do it 2 years from now. No, this said on or before a particular date. So what's supposed to be on there? The name and address of every person liable to be taxed in the local tax collecting unit with a full description of all real property liable to be taxed. So there's two different things, right? The name and address of every person liable to be taxed in the local taxing unit, and a full description of all real property liable to be taxed. Right? Because one's the persons and one's the property, and the other one's the land. So even though I'm a renter, this is my point, even though I'm a renter, I should be on some assessment roll with my name and address. Because it goes on to say, if the name of the owner or occupant of any tract or parcel of real property is known, the assessor shall enter the name and address of the owner or occupant opposite the description of the property. If unknown, the real property described upon the roll shall be assessed as owner unknown. So where's this assessment roll? That's the thing. Where's the assessment roll? The assessor shall estimate according to the best of his knowledge, judgment, true cash value. Okay, he shall estimate the true cash value of personal property. Yep, subject to some section. Local tax collecting unit. Now, I believe that to be the county. And, this is where now we're talking about that transcript. Subject to this section, a local tax collecting unit may use a computerized database system as assessment roll described in Section 1. If the local tax collecting unit and the assessor certify in a form and manner prescribed by the State Tax Commission that the proposed system has the capacity to enable local tax collecting unit to comply with the local tax collecting unit to comply, and the local taxing unit complies with all the following requirements. So, did they do it or not? Because if they did, well, then somebody had to swear to something. A sworn statement by the assessor. Right now we got people swearing to things. This is where it's no longer deniability. They have to swear to it. The local tax collecting unit shall certify and maintain retention policy that complies with, this has to do with the records retention. But this is the main thing. Is this what they're doing? Is there a computerized database someplace? The assessor or local taxing unit that provides a computer terminal for public viewing of assessment roll is considered to have an assessment roll available for public inspection. Well, that's because you're supposed to be able to go look at the assessment roll, but you may need to go see the assessor. Then we go into the tax rolls. Okay, now hang on a second. Okay, just so we kind of know who's who, real quick, right? So in MCL 211-10, annual assessment of property, an assessment of all property in the state liable taxation shall be made annually in all townships, villages, cities by applicable assessing officer as provided by Section 3 of Article 9 of the State Constitution of 1963 and Section 27A. So apparently that's identifying whoever the assessing officer is. But continuing on, whoever that is then, all property assessment rolls and property appraisal cards shall be available for inspection and copying during customary business hours. Now I know people have seen appraisal cards, but where's the assessment roll? Right? Who has the assessment roll? It's not the same thing. The appraisal card is not the same as the assessment roll. An annual assessment shall be made by an assessor who has been certified as qualified by the State Tax Commission as having successfully completed training in a school of assessment practices, or by passage of test approved by. So in other words, they got to be certified by the state. Okay. If an assessing district, now we're not, see, now it says district. It didn't say township or city. So now, I mean, if you're going to use a different word, it must mean something, right? So I'm not really sure exactly what the assessing district is. That's why we have to go ask more questions. I'm just trying to lay out the things that seem to be most important to get next, to get to the, not trying to get all the way to the end today, just trying to get some more details. So an assessing district that does not have an assessor qualified by certification, the State Tax Commission may employ an assessor so qualified. Okay, so they can hire somebody. If an assessing district does not have an assessor qualified by certification, and has not employed a certified assessor, the assessment shall be made by the county tax. Okay, so at the end of the day, there has to be an assessment roll. Either the township did it, or the district did it, or they hired somebody to do it, and they didn't do that, then the county tax or equalization department has to do it. If they didn't do it, then the State Tax Commission has to do it. So it hasn't been done, you go to the next higher level until you get to the State Tax Commission. In fact, if you find out that it's not done, go to the State Tax Commission and have them find out why it's not been done. Every lawful assessment roll, there's not legal, lawful. Every lawful assessment roll shall have a certificate attached, signed by a certified assessor who prepared or supervised the preparation of the roll. A village that is located in more than one assessing district may, in a form or manner prescribed, that's just village stuff. A certificate attached to an assessment roll pursuant to this section shall be in the form prescribed by the State Tax Commission. All right, so get with the State Tax Commission and say, what is the certificate? Can you send me a copy of the certificate that's supposed to be attached to the assessment roll? So you can go down there and see if that's what's attached to the assessment roll that that they give you, not something that they made up. I'm all about going and showing them the law, right? If you're going to go there, go with the law in your hand and give it to them. And don't bring it back with you. Leave it with them. So right here, we're talking about these sections. Just circle them. This is what you're supposed to do. This is the laws of Michigan. Right? Because assessor who certifies an assessment roll over which he or she did not have direct supervision is guilty of a misdemeanor. That's a big deal. And they got to use official assessor's manual. So if you're as new to this as I am, you should go and download these sections off of the Michigan compiled law, and read them for yourself. And this back to the preparation, right? So what else did I want to show you real quick? Just a couple more things and we're done. Hang on here. Okay, so the supervisor of this is Township Law, right? MCL 41, Chapter 41 is the Township. It says Section 61, the supervisor of each township is the chief assessor of the township. The township board may provide for the appointment of additional assessors. If the supervisor is not certified at the proper level, then the township board shall provide for the appointment of a properly certified assessor. So what did your township do? Did they get the supervisor certified by the state? If they didn't, then did they appoint an assessor certified by the state? Because in my township, right, Oakfield Township, there's the supervisor, William G. Dean, right? But the assessor is Matthew Smith. So, did Matthew Smith been approved by the state? Well, I plan on sending a Freedom of Information request to him, asking for the information on all these different people and who's been approved. But you don't need that to go down there and ask them at the township, right? Just take the township law. That's all I'm saying is say, well, this says this township law says a lot of things. Number one, that the supervisor is supposed to be able to take your oath, right? So they should be able to do a sworn statement for you. The supervisor is the chief assessor. At the end of the day, he's responsible. That's what I'm saying. If you're in a parish council or a church council of some kind, why don't you ask the supervisor of the township that you're in to come in for an informal hearing to talk about property taxes, right? And show them the law. Say, look, because this stuff is being done, we're funding the deep state, and we don't want to do it anymore. So that's what's going on, right? On what day was this? January 20th, 2021. Dana's going to have a show cause hearing, and we're going to try to, get one of these to stick down here and see what they have to say. And then tell them at the same time we want the records fixed. And, once they fix it for one person, we'll know how to fix it for everybody. That's the point. Well, very good. I'm going to leave it there. You all have a great day, and hope you found it useful, Dana, and I'll talk to you soon. See ya.